This video is for the Module 2 problem set of IHP 525. We're not going to go over every problem in this problem set. This is just going to give you tips and tricks that students tend to mess up on, or things that could help you out that many students wish they knew beforehand if they could go back and redo their assignments. First of all, you should be reading everything in the modules. There are lots of videos in the modules to help you through some of the concepts and some of the calculations using our StatCrunch software. You should also be reading the assignments. The chapter is assigned each week in the syllabus. So if you want to know what is assigned each week for reading in your textbook, look at your syllabus. And also you should know that many of these questions are extremely similar to ones found in the back of your textbook sections with answers in the back. Okay, you shouldn't copy the answers. That would be pointless, and sometimes your answers would be incomplete if you copied them, but that should give you an idea of how to do the questions. Absolutely, before you hand your work in, look and make sure that your answers match up if the questions are exactly the same. Some of them aren't exactly the same. They're similar, so if you don't read carefully and you decide to take a shortcut and copy from the back of the book, you'll often find the questions just a little bit different, and so it didn't quite work. Okay. The other thing is, you may have workshops during the week. If you do, depending on what term you're in, you should be getting an email about those. And also, there is free tutoring. If you look in the announcements and in the modules, there's free tutoring for this class. Don't be afraid to use it, and don't wait. Students who have never needed tutoring, who are top students, often still find that they need tutoring for this class, and that's okay. Just don't wait. Don't wait till week 5 till you realize you're just not getting it. Okay, the other thing I want to point out is problem sets are really helpful in terms of learning the material. But keep in mind, points-wise, each problem set is worth 20 points, but so is each discussion board. I always wonder, and students spend hours and hours and hours trying to make sure each discussion or each question on the problem set is answered perfectly, but they'll skip the discussion board, which can take 15 minutes out of your week when they're worth the same amount of points. So make sure you guys are actually doing the discussion boards. They're usually due on Thursday for your initial post and Sunday by your 2 response posts. It's really hard if you follow the prompts to not get full credit on your discussion board posts. That said, obviously, doing well in the problem set is not just going to help you with the problem set, it's going to help you with the quizzes, and it's going to help you with your final project. So you still absolutely want to learn this material for your problem set. Okay. The 5-city project, this question, it asks you to draw a schematic or a study design, outline the study design in schematic form. This might not be obvious if you don't have your textbook. What they're asking you to do, there are specific examples in your textbook about what a study schematic looks like. In fact, on page 32 and on page 36 are great examples of schematics for other studies, and you can look at those and modify those to create your own schematic. Now, many of you don't know how to draw shapes and things in a Word document, and that's fine. If you want to draw your picture on a piece of paper, what students often do is they'll take a picture with their phone, they'll email that picture to themselves, and then open their email on the computer, pull that picture out of the email, and then you copy it right below your question. Make sure don't upload it in a separate document, okay, or don't paste it at the end of this assignment. Put it right after this, where I'm typing this nonsense. That's where you're going to that's where you're going to put your picture of your schematic. Of course, if you have another way to do it, if you want to use the shapes in Word or something else, that's perfectly fine. It's not really worth it to me to spend hours trying to get it to work in Word if you can just copy and paste a picture. Okay. Again, I've given you the page numbers in the book where there are examples of schematics. For the second question, what people often answer or get incorrect or incomplete is B, describe the sample. The sample is what you have data for. Okay? If you don't have data for that person, they aren't part of your sample. Okay? So keep that in mind when you describe your sample. It should be very specific to this study. Your population should be very specific to this study. Some people, every once in a while, someone will just write a general definition of sample, and that's not correct. You want specific for this study. The other thing students have trouble with in Part C on number 2 is what concern is raised by the fact that only 25 of the 100 questionnaires were completed and returned. Don't just say this is going to skew the results. Writing things like, oh, this is just going to skew the results, that's just a cop-out. What does that mean when you skew the results? How is it going to skew the results? What do you mean by skew the results? Make calculations inaccurate? What? You can mean several things. So I would refrain from just using that word haphazardly in this course, that, oh, that's just going to skew the results. Be very specific about the concern here. If you're going to talk about bias, what type of bias? Be very specific. Okay? You don't have to write a paragraph. One sentence will suffice. Just be specific. Take the time to research the types of biases if you need to. Okay. Number 3, students usually do construct correct stem plots. There are videos in the modules about how to do this in StatCrunch. The thing those students forget to do in number 3 is compare. Give me a sentence or two that compares the distribution of the site. Talk to me about different, general ranges. Is one more spread out than the other? Is one seem to have a higher, midpoint than the other? Whatever measures you're looking at, maybe the center of the distribution, is one different, or is one bigger than the other? Is one more spread out than the other? Okay. So make sure you compare the distribution and mention center and spread. Remember, measures of center tend to be things like median, mode, mean, and measures of spread tend to be things like range, interquartile range, standard deviation, variance, things like that. Okay. You don't need to talk exactly about calculations. Just tell me what the stem plot, the picture, is telling you. Okay. Now 4 is students tend to really mess up on number 4. 4 is not related to question 3. Okay. Question 4 has nothing to do with air samples. Okay. It's a question that stands on its own. What would you report? That's just the heading of the question. You don't need to answer that. That's just the heading of the question. Okay. The 2 questions you need to answer here are, what is an appropriate measure of central location for the data that are really skewed? Okay. So just list that. Say for data that are really skewed, the appropriate measure of central location is blank. And then their second part of number 4 is, what is an appropriate measure of spread for data that are really skewed? So you would have another sentence that says, for data that are really skewed, an appropriate measure of spread is blank. Okay? So make sure you answer both of those questions. And again, it has nothing to do with question 3. Okay? On question 5, most people watch the videos and can do the side-by-side box plots and really don't have a problem with that. Additionally, there are videos for Part B calculating the mean and standard deviations within each group. Many students forget to do this last part. You forget to comment on your findings. Okay? Couple sentences of comments should suffice, but don't forget that. You'll lose points just because you didn't see that last sentence. And that happens throughout this course. Students will tend to miss points because they just glanced at the question and didn't answer parts B and C. Or they glanced at the template and didn't really read the question carefully. Okay? So again, read your book. If you need content help, Khan Academy, YouTube, the videos in the module, the text in your module, workshops, the free tutoring for this class are all designed to help you get these assignments done. And again, you can check your work for several of these questions with the back of the book. Okay. All right, we'll see you next time.